This sermon comes from Chris Tull, and I speak his words. Stephen looked up. My father left behind him something I really value, a well-written diary through which I can relive my early years. Turning to May 1940, it begins quietly enough, but by the end of the month and then on through much of the year, he records in red ink Hitler's rapid advances over the free world. I was too young to take it all in, but for adults, how totally hopeless the situation must have seemed. Looking around, there was little hope in 1940. The same could have been said for the future of Christianity in Acts 7, when Stephen was martyred. At the first Pentecost, many believers, filled with the Holy Spirit, had come out of hiding and poured out into the streets. For a short while they could remain in the open, but not for long. The authorities began to get a grip on the situation. Soon they were picking off their leaders. Peter and others were put into prison, but not even that stopped them. Next, the authorities turned on this very promising young spokesman, Stephen. After a parody of a trial, he was martyred. James would soon face the same fate. One by one, others would be silenced. Looking round from an earthly point of view, the prospects for the faith must have seemed hopeless. In today's Gospel, Thomas queried what Jesus was saying about a heavenly home. Rather like whose Eeyore, he tended to keep his eye firmly on the ground and could not see beyond it. He was good at putting words into everyone's doubts. He was well-meaning, but he needed Jesus to help him raise his sights higher. In the same way, gloomy was the news in 1949, when missionaries forced to leave China when the communists took over. They were forced to abandon their 4 million followers. What possible hope could there be? None, if they merely looked down. Likewise, we may wonder what hope there is for our world, for our faith, in days of small, struggling churches and apparent abandonment of God in our world. Yes, merely looking round, what hope is there often in life? Just looking round. Looking up can be so different. We see in Acts 7, verses 55 to 6, that Stephen, at the climax of his trial, looked up, and in a vision he actually saw Jesus at the right hand of God. Was this a mere illusion of wishful thinking? Did God have some bigger purpose behind Stephen's death, as was the case when Jesus also suffered and died? In verse 58, Luke adds an important fact. Saul, who became Paul, the great apostle, was there at the time, approving of what was going on. Later, Saul deeply regretted it, and God used the blood of Stephen to change a persecutor into an apostle. God's plan was far greater than anyone could imagine at the time. This change in Saul was God's doing. People prayed. Saul could no longer ignore the pricks of his own conscience. God used this to change history. When Peter was held in prison due to be martyred again the next day, the church prayed earnestly for him. Acts 12:5. And in his case, he was able to escape. When Christians raise their sights and believe, things begin to happen. During the Second World War, King George VI called for days of national prayer, and at those critical moments things began to go our way. On one occasion, quite unexpectedly, when we were at our weakest, Hitler took the pressure off us. Many prayed, and still do, for the Chinese Christians. When the bamboo curtain was finally lifted, 4 million had become 70 million believers. Today we understand there are very large numbers of secret believers in many of the harsh persecuting countries of the Middle East. Many of them, like Stephen, look up by faith beyond their terrible circumstances and see the living God. Pray too for them. In our country, as Christians, we may not face persecution, but we may face belittling, contempt, even downright hostility. God, faith, and the home in heaven for all believers of which Jesus speaks in today's gospel are dismissed by many as fantasy, foolish imaginings by gullible minds. Yet, as I said in my previous address, something like 5 million people apparently went to church on the first Sunday after the lockup via the media. As well as joining in our own local phone or Zoom services, many of us have seen Sunday services on TV. Not only have the words spoken in empty buildings been impressive, but also from previously recorded services, the stories of transformed lives. This has often been reflected in the obvious joy in the faces of all ages joining in. Far from being dead, we are seeing a new dynamism, something no less than the gradual rebirth of the church in our times. The more we pray for this, the more this will happen. Jesus promised Thomas then, and all of us today, that anyone who has faith will do the things Jesus did, and greater too. John 14:12. Stephen looked up. Thomas looked up. And so must we. Look around and you don't see very much. Look up and you will see. The story in my father's diary runs on to the event on May the 8th, 1945, which we celebrate now. This seemingly impossible happened. All this can happen again, be it over the coronavirus or the rebirth of the faith. In each case, prayer made all the difference. So be encouraged. In 1945, the impossible happened. We thank God with all our hearts for that. God is still doing the impossible in our day, be it over the coronavirus or the rebirth of the church. Whatever the cause, like Stephen, look up and pray with more time on our hands. Pray even more and thank God too. Amen.